The rain pounded against the windows as Clara stepped into the alley, her heart racing. A group of boys had cornered a girl she'd never seen before, vulnerable, scared, and alone. But when Clara stepped in to protect her, she had no idea that this quiet student was hiding a billion-dollar secret and a deadly danger that would soon target them both. Would Clara survive the truth? The rain came down hard, blurring the world into a canvas of gray as Clara Bennett pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders. Her day had been long. Another round of grading papers, another parent-teacher meeting, and the same quiet, nearly empty halls of Maplewood High. She just wanted to get home and curl up with a cup of tea, her only solace in an otherwise quiet, predictable life. But as she walked down the alley beside the school, something caught her attention. A voice, harsh, a laugh, then a thud. Clara's step slowed, her instincts immediately on edge. She knew those sounds too well, teenage aggression. She approached cautiously, peering around the corner. There, in the shadow of the back door, a group of boys had Olivia Harper cornered. Olivia, the new girl, looked so out of place, too composed for a high school student, too fragile in this rough, noisy corner of the world. Her wide eyes flickered nervously as the boys circled her, taunting her with every word. "Come on, Harper," one of the boys sneered. "What's with the weird clothes? Think you're too good for us?" Clara's heart raced. The girl had been quiet in class, always sitting at the back, always avoiding the spotlight. But this was different. This was something she couldn't ignore. Without thinking, Clara stepped forward, her voice firm but kind. "Hey, enough." The boys froze, momentarily stunned by the presence of a teacher. Clara's hands clenched into fists, her body tense. She wasn't afraid. She'd dealt with unruly students before. But there was something different about this. Olivia's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear, but she didn't make a sound. The boys exchanged glances, sizing Clara up. One of them, a tall, lanky kid with a cocky smile, took a step toward her. "What's it to you, Miss Bennett? You know, she's just a freak. Nobody cares about her." Clara didn't flinch. "I do." The words came out before she could stop them, raw and honest. Something about Olivia's silent vulnerability stirred something protective inside her. She wasn't about to let this girl, this quiet student who hadn't asked for any trouble, suffer in silence. She held the boy's gaze, unwavering. "You want to test me? Go ahead." The boys exchanged uncertain looks, but the taller one backed down first, muttering something under his breath before signaling the others to leave. As they retreated, Clara's heart settled, her pulse slowly returning to normal. The air felt heavy, a silent kind of tension lingering between them. Olivia didn't speak. She simply stood there, her hands tucked tightly into the sleeves of her oversized sweater. Her eyes flickered up to Clara's face, unsure. Clara smiled gently, trying to reassure her. "You're okay now." Olivia nodded slowly, but her lips didn't part. For a moment, Clara wondered if the girl even knew how to thank her, or if words could ever explain the relief Clara felt, knowing she'd stepped in. Olivia started, but her voice faltered. She seemed to shrink into herself, like she was battling some invisible force inside her. Finally, her voice came out in a quiet whisper, "Thank you." Clara gave a soft nod. "No need to thank me. It's just what I do." She hesitated for a moment, watching Olivia's fragile form, wondering if there was more to the story than this. "Are you okay?" Olivia didn't answer at first, but after a long beat, she nodded again. Slowly, she met Clara's eyes, only for a brief second before looking away. There was something in those eyes, something guarded, a story unsaid. Clara felt it, deep in her chest, but she didn't press. "Not yet. Do you need a ride home? I can drive you." Clara's voice was casual, offering her an out, no pressure. Olivia shook her head almost too quickly. "No, I'll be fine." Clara smiled softly. "All right. If you ever change your mind, you know where to find me." As Olivia walked off, her figure disappearing into the misty rain, Clara stood frozen for a moment, watching her. The weight of the moment lingered. It wasn't just about a student and a teacher. There was something more, something unspoken. Clara turned and walked toward her car, but her mind kept drifting back to Olivia. What was her story? Why had she looked at Clara with those eyes? Eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. And deep down, she knew she'd never be able to forget that moment in the alley. That girl, that silence, and the feeling that somehow she was meant to protect her. The next morning, Clara arrived early at Maplewood High, the low hum of the fluorescent lights greeting her as she unlocked her classroom door. She'd gotten little sleep, her thoughts tangled in the rain-soaked alley from yesterday. It wasn't like her to dwell on a single encounter, but something about Olivia's vulnerability gnawed at her. The girl had been through something, Clara could feel it. And yet, Olivia had pushed away any offer of help with a quiet, invisible barrier. The first bell rang, snapping Clara back to reality. Her classroom filled with the usual chatter, the students slipping into their seats, some distracted by phones, others lost in conversation. But Clara's eyes immediately scanned the room for one student, Olivia. When the door opened and Olivia walked in, it was as if the room grew quieter. She had that same disarming quietness to her, as though she existed outside of the chaos. She wore the same oversized sweater, her hair pulled into a messy ponytail. Her eyes avoided meeting Clara's, but they flickered for just a second, a brief moment of recognition. Clara's heart tightened, but she quickly masked it with a soft smile and turned her attention to the board. "Good morning, class. Let's get started," Clara said, her voice steady, despite the churn of emotions inside her. The lesson began, but Clara could feel Olivia's presence like a shadow in the back of the room. She focused on teaching, on explaining the lesson with care, but a part of her was still watching Olivia, studying the girl as if deciphering a puzzle she wasn't meant to solve. As the period wore on, Clara noticed something. Olivia never raised her hand, never looked up for long. It was as though she had built a wall around herself, one that even Clara's kindness couldn't breach. By lunchtime, Clara found herself walking past the cafeteria when she spotted Olivia sitting alone at a table near the window. There was a kind of isolation in the way Olivia ate her lunch, quietly, as if the world outside the glass didn't exist. Clara hesitated. Should she approach? Should she sit down? She wasn't sure. It felt like an intrusion, as if Olivia's silence was a fortress and Clara wasn't sure whether to knock. But as if sensing her indecision, Olivia's eyes met hers through the glass. The briefest glance, but it held a question in it. A plea, maybe, but also a challenge. Olivia wanted Clara to understand, to stop pretending like everything was normal. Clara's breath caught, but she pushed the urge to turn away aside. She opened the cafeteria door and made her way to Olivia's table. The room was full of noise, but in that moment, it felt quieter, more private. "Mind if I join you?" Clara asked, her voice gentle, yet firm. Olivia blinked, caught off guard. She hesitated, then shrugged slightly, her body language still closed off. "I guess." Clara took the seat across from her, folding her hands in front of her. She didn't press. She just waited, letting the silence stretch between them. "So, how are you doing today?" Clara asked, her tone soft but warm. She didn't need Olivia to spill her secrets. She just needed her to know she cared, without pushing too hard. Olivia didn't answer immediately. Instead, she toyed with her sandwich, eyes downcast. After a long pause, she whispered, almost to herself, "I'm fine." But Clara could see the tremble in her fingers, the way she held herself together as if everything was breaking apart beneath the surface. Clara smiled softly, offering her the space to talk if she wanted to. "It's okay if you're not," she said, her voice gentle. Olivia's eyes flickered up at that, a mix of confusion and something else. Gratitude, maybe. But it was fleeting, gone before Clara could be sure. Olivia set down her sandwich, her gaze flickering to the window again. "I just don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere." Clara's heart clenched at the rawness in Olivia's words. She could sense the weight of whatever was pressing down on the girl. It wasn't just high school. Olivia was carrying something far heavier than teenage angst. "You belong here," Clara said softly, reaching across the table, her hand hovering for a moment before resting there. It wasn't a grand gesture, but the simple act of offering something, anything, to bridge the gap between them felt like a small victory. Olivia's eyes snapped to her, surprised by the contact, and for the first time since Clara had met her, Olivia's expression softened, just a little. "Thanks," she murmured, barely audible. Clara pulled her hand back, feeling a slight rush of warmth in her chest. It wasn't much, but it was something. Olivia was opening up just a crack. And for Clara, that was a start. As Olivia gathered her things to leave, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the girl's story was far from over. The distance between them hadn't shrunk, but there was something there, something worth pursuing, something worth protecting. Olivia glanced back at her as she walked away, and for a moment, Clara swore she saw a flicker of trust in her eyes. But then it was gone. Clara exhaled, the weight of the girl's silent plea hanging in the air between them. She had no idea what Olivia was running from, but Clara was beginning to suspect it was more than just high school drama. It was something bigger, something dangerous, and Clara knew, deep down, that protecting Olivia might not be as simple as it seemed. The days passed, each one seemingly blending into the next. Olivia's presence in class was a quiet constant. She kept her distance, never fully engaging with the others, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something was building beneath the surface. The girl was a mystery, one Clara felt compelled to solve, but she knew better than to push too hard. Still, something in her gut told her Olivia needed help, even if the girl wasn't ready to ask for it. It was another rainy afternoon when Clara walked into the teacher's lounge, expecting the usual buzz of faculty gossip and hastily eaten lunches. Instead, the room fell silent as she entered, and several teachers glanced up with uneasy looks. Clara raised an eyebrow, confused by the sudden tension. "Something wrong?" she asked, forcing a casual smile as she made her way to the coffee machine. One of the teachers, Mrs. Simmons, cleared her throat. "There's talk in the administration about your relationship with Olivia Harper." Clara's stomach tightened at the mention of Olivia's name. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Simmons exchanged an uncomfortable glance with Mr. Carter, the gym teacher, before speaking again. "There's concern. You've been spending a lot of time with her, offering rides, keeping an eye on her. It's starting to raise questions." Clara frowned, feeling the weight of their words. She hadn't realized anyone had noticed her small gestures of kindness. It was just natural. She didn't think twice about protecting a student in need. But now she felt a tightening in her chest, the pressure of their judgment weighing down on her. "I'm just doing my job," Clara replied, her voice more defensive than she intended. "It's not about that, Clara," Mrs. Simmons said gently, her voice laced with concern. "But Olivia's been acting different. And you know how rumors spread. They're already calling her a loner, a freak. And now, with your involvement, it doesn't look good." Clara's heart sank. Was that how people saw Olivia? As an outsider, as something to be whispered about? She wanted to defend the girl, to tell them they didn't understand her. But she also knew she had to tread carefully. "Thanks for the heads up," Clara muttered, her mind spinning. She left the lounge, her thoughts in a whirlpool. Was she in over her head? That afternoon, Olivia was late to class. Clara couldn't help but feel a pang of worry. The girl had become more of a mystery with each passing day, her silence growing thicker, her barriers higher. Clara found herself pacing the back of the room as the bell rang, her eyes flicking to the door with every passing second. When Olivia finally walked in, it was as though the air changed. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her hair, usually tied back neatly, hung loose around her face. She moved with a quiet urgency, avoiding the gaze of anyone around her. Clara's stomach churned with concern. Olivia's usual seat was in the back of the room, far from the others. But today, she hesitated at the door, looking around like she was searching for something. When their eyes met, Clara gave a small nod, urging her to sit. Olivia hesitated for only a moment before making her way to her seat. But there was something different in the way she carried herself now, as if she had entered the room under a heavy burden. Clara couldn't ignore it any longer. She had to talk to her. After class, when the students shuffled out, Clara lingered, her fingers nervously tapping on the desk. She waited until the hallway was mostly empty before she approached Olivia, who was already gathering her things. "Olivia, can we talk for a minute?" Clara asked softly. Olivia froze for a second, then looked up, meeting Clara's gaze. There was something in her eyes, fear, hesitation, and maybe even relief. But she didn't say anything. She just nodded, almost too quietly. Clara motioned toward the door. Let's take a walk. Just for a minute. They stepped outside into the cool air, the soft sound of the rain hitting the ground mixing with the occasional rattle of distant thunder. They walked side by side, the silence between them thick, but Clara didn't push. She didn't want to make Olivia feel cornered. Not like before. Finally, after a long stretch of quiet, Olivia spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry for causing any trouble. Clara stopped in her tracks, startled by the words. You haven't caused trouble, she replied firmly. I'm just worried about you, Olivia. I know something's going on, and I want to help. Olivia stopped walking too, her shoulders tightening. She looked at the ground, her hands clenched at her sides. Clara could almost feel the weight of the girl's silence pressing down on her. I don't belong here, Olivia said, her voice barely audible. I don't fit in with anyone. I never have. Clara's heart twisted at the vulnerability in Olivia's voice. She wanted to say something comforting, something that would make everything better. But instead, she found herself standing there, helpless. I don't have a place in this world, Olivia continued, her voice breaking just slightly. Not here. Not anywhere. The sadness in Olivia's words hit Clara like a punch to the gut. She wanted to say that wasn't true, that everyone belonged somewhere, that there was a place for Olivia. But as Clara looked at the girl, she couldn't shake the feeling that Olivia's isolation wasn't just about high school. There was something deeper, something darker hidden beneath that wall of silence. I don't know what you're going through, but I want to help, Clara said quietly. Whatever it is, I'm here. Olivia turned her head slightly, her face still shadowed by the weight of her emotions. For a moment, it looked like she might say more, but then she simply nodded. Thanks, Miss Bennett. The words hung in the air between them, a fragile thread connecting them in that fleeting moment. But just as quickly as it had begun, Olivia turned and walked away, disappearing into the rain, leaving Clara standing alone in the wet, quiet afternoon. Clara stood there, the weight of her own thoughts pressing down on her chest. Olivia had said she didn't belong, but Clara couldn't help but feel like that wasn't the full story. There was something else, something bigger, and Clara had a feeling she was about to be drawn into it, whether she was ready or not. As she walked back to her car, her mind raced with questions. What was Olivia hiding? And what would happen when the truth finally came to light? The following days seemed to drag on, each one a silent echo of the last. Olivia continued to keep her distance, never raising her hand in class, never making eye contact with anyone except Clara. But that wasn't what kept Clara up at night. It was the girl's quiet, almost imperceptible shifts. The way she moved just slightly differently after their conversation in the rain, the brief flicker of emotion in her eyes whenever their gazes met. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break. On Friday afternoon, Clara stood at her desk, going over papers as the last bell rang. She was gathering her things when she heard footsteps behind her. Without turning around, she knew it was Olivia. The hesitation in her steps, the barely there presence, Clara had come to recognize it like the back of her hand. Olivia. Clara called softly, not turning around but sensing the girl standing in the doorway. I need to talk to you. Olivia's voice came, quieter than usual. There was an edge to it now, a tightness that Clara didn't recognize. Clara turned to face her, her eyes soft with concern. Olivia stood there, her eyes guarded, her posture stiff as if bracing for something. She looked more fragile than usual, as though she was holding something inside her that might explode if she let her guard down. Of course. What's on your mind? Clara asked gently, her voice steady but her pulse quickening. Olivia looked around the empty classroom, as if checking to make sure no one was nearby. Can we go somewhere private? I need to tell you something. Clara's heart skipped a beat. She nodded, walking toward the door. Of course. Let's go outside where we can talk. The two of them walked in silence, the hallway echoing with their footsteps, until they stepped into the courtyard behind the school. The air was cool, and the sun, low in the sky, cast long shadows across the brick walls. There was a calmness to the place, but Clara could feel the tension in Olivia's stiff shoulders. Olivia stopped at the edge of the courtyard, her eyes looking off into the distance. She was wringing her hands, her fingers twisting together nervously. Clara stood a few steps away, giving her space, but her concern was evident in her eyes. "I don't know how to say this," Olivia began, her voice cracking slightly, "but I think I've been lying to you." Clara felt a tightness in her chest. "What do you mean?" Olivia swallowed hard, looking down at the ground. She seemed to gather her courage, but every word was a struggle. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm not just a girl in high school." Clara's brow furrowed, and she stepped closer, her voice soft and reassuring. "Olivia, whatever it is, it's okay. You can tell me." The words hung between them, like a secret that had been building for too long. Olivia's eyes were now locked on Clara, and for the first time, Clara saw real fear in her gaze, a kind of fear that made her feel like she was about to witness something she wasn't prepared for. I'm not just Olivia Harper. She stopped, taking a shaky breath, as if the weight of her words was too much to bear. "I'm the daughter of a billionaire." Clara blinked, her mind trying to catch up with what Olivia had just said. "A billionaire." Olivia nodded, her lips trembling slightly. "I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. I've been running from it, my family, my life, all of it. I didn't want anyone to know. I just wanted to be normal." Clara stood there, her mouth slightly open, trying to process the information. Olivia Harper, the quiet, withdrawn girl in her class, was the daughter of someone with unimaginable wealth. It didn't seem possible, yet the pain in Olivia's eyes made it clear that this wasn't a joke. "I don't want anyone to know. If they do, everything changes," Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I'm not safe anymore, and I don't know what to do." Clara's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "What do you mean you're not safe?" Olivia's eyes filled with unshed tears as she shook her head. "There are people after me. People who want what my family has. I've been hiding, moving from place to place. I thought I could escape, but it's catching up to me. And now it's threatening everything I care about." Clara felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just a case of a girl running away from home, or high school drama. Olivia was in danger, real danger. And Clara, in her innocent desire to protect the girl, was now tangled in a web far deeper and more complicated than she could have ever imagined. "You don't have to do this alone," Clara said, her voice softer now, a protective warmth seeping through her words. "I'll help you. Whatever it is, I'll help you figure it out." Olivia looked at her with wide eyes, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. "You don't understand. If anyone finds out who I really am, it's not just about me anymore. It's about you too. You could be in danger too, Clara." Clara stepped closer, placing a hand gently on Olivia's shoulder. "Then we'll face it together. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Olivia seemed to collapse a little, her body relaxing for the first time since Clara had met her. She let out a shaky breath, the walls she'd so carefully constructed around herself beginning to crumble. "Thank you," she whispered, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. Clara stood with her in that quiet courtyard, the weight of Olivia's truth settling between them. The girl who had seemed so distant, so guarded, was now fragile in her arms, revealing the depth of her pain and fear. As the sun dipped lower, Clara knew this was just the beginning. There was so much more to Olivia's story, and Clara was about to be pulled into a world she hadn't been prepared for. But one thing was certain, she wasn't going to let Olivia face it alone. And the storm that was coming would test them both in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The following week felt different. Every time Clara stepped into her classroom, she found herself stealing glances at Olivia, trying to read her, trying to understand the girl whose life now seemed shrouded in danger. Olivia's walls were still up, but the brief conversation in the courtyard had changed something, at least in Clara. There was a connection now, a bond built on trust, even if it was fragile. Clara felt responsible for her in a way she hadn't before, like she was now part of a secret that was bigger than either of them. That Friday afternoon, After class ended, Clara was about to pack up when she heard a quiet knock on her door. She turned, expecting the usual group of students asking questions, but this time, it was Olivia. She looked more composed than the last time Clara had seen her, but there was still an edge to her demeanor, a tension that couldn't be ignored. "Hey, can we talk?" Olivia asked, her voice quiet, almost tentative. Clara nodded, her heart quickening. "Of course. Come in." Olivia stepped into the room, and they both sat down at Clara's desk. The air between them felt charged, like they were teetering on the edge of something they couldn't yet fully comprehend. "I've been thinking about what we talked about," Olivia began, her fingers nervously twisting the strap of her bag. "About who I really am." Clara leaned forward, her eyes soft. "Olivia, I want you to know you don't have to share anything with me unless you're ready. But I'm here for you, okay? You're not alone in this." Olivia's eyes flickered with something, relief, maybe, but it was gone as quickly as it came. She bit her lip before continuing. "It's not just that I don't want people to know who I am. It's that I'm scared." Olivia's voice cracked, and Clara could see the vulnerability breaking through her carefully crafted exterior. "There's so much I'm running from. And the more I try to hide, the worse it gets." Clara's chest tightened at the sight of Olivia's pain. She wanted to reach out, to tell her everything would be okay, but she knew better. This wasn't something that could be fixed with kind words. There was danger in Olivia's past, and Clara knew they were about to be dragged deeper into it. "I'm not the only one who's been hiding," Olivia whispered, looking down at her hands. "My family's been hiding too, from people who want to hurt us, and I've been trying to keep my distance from them. But now they're finding me again." Clara's stomach turned. This wasn't some teenage drama, this was real. People who wanted to hurt Olivia. Her own family caught in something darker than she could have imagined. Clara leaned in, her voice steady. "Who are they, Olivia? Who's after you?" Olivia hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. For a moment, Clara thought she might back out, that she wouldn't say anything more. But then, with a shuddering breath, Olivia spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "My father," she began. "He's involved in things. Bad things. He's one of the richest men in the country, but he's also connected to dangerous people. People who don't care about anyone, just about money. And when my mom died, it made things worse. He couldn't keep the peace anymore. He started doing things, illegal things." Clara felt the floor beneath her feet shift. This was bigger than anything she had imagined. Olivia's father wasn't just a businessman. He was a player in a dangerous, hidden world, one that threatened to swallow everything in its path. And Olivia, the quiet girl sitting before her, was tangled in it, dragged in by blood and circumstance. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Clara asked, her voice soft, almost a plea. "Why keep running?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears again, and this time, she didn't try to hide them. "Because telling someone means making it real. And I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to drag anyone else into this, into my mess. You don't deserve that, Clara. You don't deserve to be a part of it." Clara reached across the desk, her hand resting gently on Olivia's. She couldn't promise that everything would be okay, that was a lie. But she could promise she wouldn't leave. She wasn't walking away from Olivia, not now, not when the girl needed her most. "You're not alone, Olivia," Clara said softly. "I'm here. Whatever happens, I'm here." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with the weight of Olivia's secret. The air in the classroom seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next chapter in their story to unfold. Olivia's shoulders seemed to relax slightly, but Clara could feel the storm brewing around them, just waiting for the right moment to break. Then, just as Clara was about to speak again, the door to the classroom suddenly opened, cutting through the moment. Both women jumped, Clara's heart leaping into her throat. Standing in the doorway was a man, a tall figure dressed in dark, expensive clothing, his face cold and hard. His eyes locked onto Olivia's with a look that made Clara's blood run cold. "Olivia," the man said, his voice low, controlled. "It's time to come home." Clara stood abruptly, instinctively moving closer to Olivia. But the man didn't seem to notice. His gaze was fixed on Olivia, and the tension in the room grew unbearable. Who are you?" Clara asked, her voice shaking slightly. though she tried to keep it steady. The man's eyes flickered to Clara for just a moment, then back to Olivia. "I'm here to take her back. She's needed at home. Now." Clara's protective instincts flared up. "No, she's not going anywhere with you." Olivia looked at Clara, a silent plea in her eyes. "Please, Miss Bennett, you don't understand. He's—" But before she could finish, the man stepped forward, his presence overpowering. "This is not your choice, young lady." Clara felt the room close in around her. She was caught between two forces, one threatening to swallow Olivia whole. The man was dangerous. She could feel it in the air between them. But Olivia, fragile as she was, needed her now more than ever. In that moment, Clara realized just how deep she was in. Olivia's world was darker than she could have imagined, and now, Clara was entangled in it too. And as the man stepped closer, Clara's heart pounded in her chest. The storm wasn't just coming. It had arrived. The man's presence filled the room, suffocating, like the walls were closing in on Clara and Olivia. Clara's hand still rested on Olivia's shoulder, her fingers tightening in a subconscious gesture of support. Her pulse raced, and for the first time in her life, Clara felt out of her depth. She had always known how to handle unruly students or tricky situations, but this was something else entirely. The man stood still, his gaze never leaving Olivia's, and Clara had the distinct sense that he wasn't here for any polite conversation. His eyes were cold, his jaw set in a way that made it clear he wasn't going to back down. "Olivia," he said again, his voice smooth but unyielding. "It's time to go. Now." Olivia looked up at Clara, her eyes wide with fear. There was no hint of rebellion in her expression, only exhaustion, like someone who had been fighting for far too long and had finally come to the conclusion that she couldn't keep running. "No," Clara said, her voice firmer than she felt. She stood between Olivia and the man, her body slightly trembling but her resolve hardening. "She's not going anywhere with you." The man's gaze shifted briefly to Clara, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. "I don't think you understand the situation. This is not a discussion." "I'm making it a discussion," Clara said, her voice rising despite the uncertainty gnawing at her. "She's a student of mine. You have no right to drag her anywhere." The man's expression didn't change. He didn't seem to care about her words. Instead, he took a small, deliberate step forward, closing the distance between them. "You're making a mistake, Miss Bennett. You don't know who I am or who I represent." His words were chilling, but Clara stood her ground, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't care who you are," Clara shot back, her voice laced with a quiet, simmering anger. "Olivia doesn't belong to you. She's not some piece of property to be collected and moved around." Olivia took a step back, her eyes darting nervously between Clara and the man, her body tense with fear. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this." Clara's heart broke for Olivia, who was clearly caught in a world that wasn't her choice. But as much as Clara wanted to protect her, she knew she couldn't do it alone. The danger in the room was real, and far bigger than she had imagined. The man's patience was wearing thin. He glanced at Olivia one last time, and then back at Clara. "You don't have the power to stop this. You're in over your head." Before Clara could respond, Olivia's voice cut through the tension, steady and filled with quiet resolve. "It's okay, Miss Bennett," she said softly, her eyes filled with regret. "He's right. I don't belong here. I can't stay in this life. I'm too far gone." Clara looked at Olivia, her heart aching. "No," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're not gone. I'm not going to let him take you." Olivia shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "You don't understand. They'll never stop coming. They'll never stop looking for me." She swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. "And if they can't get to me, they'll hurt the people I care about, including you." Clara's throat tightened, the gravity of Olivia's words sinking in. The weight of her responsibility suddenly felt suffocating. She wasn't just a teacher anymore. She was the only person standing between Olivia and a dangerous world that was hunting her. And in that moment, Clara realized she had a choice. She could walk away, let the man take Olivia, and pretend this was just another problem beyond her control. Or she could take a step into the unknown, into danger, and protect Olivia at all costs. Clara glanced back at the man, her voice steady but filled with defiance. I'm not letting you take her. The man's eyes narrowed, clearly sizing up Clara. You're making a mistake. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and ominous. But Clara didn't flinch. She wasn't backing down. I'm not afraid of you, she said quietly, and for the first time in days, she felt a strange sense of clarity. The fear still simmered beneath the surface, but there was also something else, something that had shifted inside her. A sense of purpose. Olivia looked at Clara, her eyes filled with gratitude, but also a deep sadness. Miss Bennett, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't know what you're getting into. You're putting yourself in danger. Please. Clara reached out, taking Olivia's hand in hers, her grip firm but gentle. You're not alone in this, she said softly, her voice filled with resolve. I'm not going to let you face this alone. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The man in the doorway, Olivia's hesitation, the weight of the decision, it all hung in the balance. Clara could feel the eyes of the universe on her, as if everything had led to this moment. She wasn't just protecting a student anymore. She was protecting someone who had become something more, a person she had grown to care for, someone who needed her. The man let out a soft laugh, one that was laced with malice. You'll regret this, he said, his voice cold. You've made a dangerous enemy today. Clara didn't respond. She simply pulled Olivia closer, offering her a small but resolute smile. She had made her choice. She wasn't walking away now. As the man turned and exited the room with a final, icy glare, Clara and Olivia stood there, the weight of the world pressing down on them. The danger was real, but so was their bond. And Clara knew in that moment that she would do whatever it took to protect Olivia, no matter what lay ahead. The man's departure left a cold, heavy silence in the room. Clara stood there, still gripping Olivia's hand, as the door clicked shut behind him. Her heart was racing, a storm of emotions swirling inside her. She had just made a choice, a dangerous one, and there was no turning back now. Olivia looked at Clara with a mixture of gratitude and fear, her eyes wide, the weight of what had just happened settling over her like a shroud. Why did you do that? She whispered, her voice shaking. Clara shook her head, her grip on Olivia's hand tightening. Because you matter, Olivia. I'm not going to let you face this alone. You deserve better than this. Olivia didn't answer right away. She just stood there, staring at Clara with an unreadable expression, as if she was still trying to process the fact that someone, Clara, was actually willing to fight for her. The idea seemed foreign to her, almost out of reach, like something she had never expected to happen in her life. I don't know what to do now, Olivia said, her voice barely audible. I don't know how to fix this. Clara took a step closer, her eyes soft but resolute. We don't need to fix everything right now. We just need to keep going, one step at a time. We'll figure it out together. A faint smile tugged at Olivia's lips, but it was fleeting. I never thought I'd be saying this, she said softly, but thank you. Clara nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of everything Olivia was carrying. There was so much she still didn't know about the girl standing before her. But Clara knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to abandon her now. As they stood there in the classroom, the distant sound of thunder rumbled in the background. The storm outside was growing, mirroring the storm that was about to consume their lives. But Clara didn't feel fear. She felt something else, something stronger. Purpose. The next few days were a blur of tension and whispered conversations. Clara was careful, her movements cautious, knowing that the moment she stepped into the world beyond her classroom, Olivia's dark world would follow her. They kept to themselves, Olivia never straying far from Clara's side. But even in the safety of their little bubble, Clara could feel the looming presence of danger, like a shadow always at the edge of her vision. It was Thursday afternoon when the phone call came. Clara had just finished a lesson and was gathering her things when her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out, her thumb hovering over the screen as she read the name on the caller ID. It was a number she didn't recognize, but the feeling of dread hit her instantly. Hello, Clara answered, trying to keep her voice steady. The voice on the other end was low, familiar in its coldness, but somehow worse now, more calculated. "Miss Bennett," the man said. "We meet again." Clara's stomach dropped. It was him, the man who had come to the school, the man who had threatened Olivia. She stood frozen, the weight of his words pressing down on her chest. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I wanted to give you a choice," he said, the sound of a low chuckle in his voice. "I thought you'd make it easy. I thought you'd back down. But it seems you're more stubborn than I anticipated." Clara's blood ran cold. "What do you mean? What are you threatening?" "Oh, nothing too severe yet. But you'll see," he replied smoothly. "The clock is ticking. If you don't let her go, the consequences will be more personal." Clara's grip tightened on the phone, her heart hammering in her chest. The words were a threat, but they were also a warning. He was giving her a choice, but it wasn't really a choice at all. Olivia's life, her safety, was hanging by a thread, and Clara was the one holding it. "I won't let you hurt her," Clara said, her voice steady, even though her insides were screaming. "I won't let you win." The man's laugh was soft, mocking. "You've already lost, Miss Bennett. The game has begun." With that, the line went dead. Clara stood in stunned silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling over her like a suffocating fog. She felt a shiver run down her spine. He wasn't just playing games. This was real, and the stakes had never been higher. She turned around to find Olivia standing at the door, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. She had heard everything. You were talking to him, weren't you?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. Clara nodded slowly, her heart heavy with the burden of what she had just learned. "Yes, and we have to be ready. Things are going to get worse before they get better." Olivia's hand shook as she stepped closer to Clara, her eyes searching Clara's face. "You don't understand. He's not just some guy. My father's connected to people who don't care about lives. They'll come after everyone. And now they know about you." Clara's chest tightened. "I won't back down, Olivia. I'll protect you. I'll protect us." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes, and she finally let herself break down, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "You don't have to do this. You don't have to put yourself in danger because of me." Clara pulled Olivia into her arms, holding her close, her own tears threatening to fall. "I'm not going anywhere. We'll face this together." And as they stood there holding each other in that small, quiet classroom, the storm outside raged on, mirroring the one that was brewing in their lives. The road ahead would be dangerous, filled with threats they couldn't yet comprehend. But Clara had made her choice, and she wasn't going to let Olivia face it alone. The storm was just beginning.